Okay, so SaaS, I think pretty amazing area. I was just looking up Traxon, our kind of go-to place for SaaS for startup information, and there are apparently 16,661 SaaS startups registered in India, at least on Traxon. So that's pretty crazy. That's perhaps a very wide-ranging definition of SaaS, but it's totally amazing, and I think that's one of the areas that's really been strong in the pandemic and post-pandemic area. So I'd like to just briefly introduce Manjot. Um Manjot is currently investing in game-changing global companies coming out of India and the Southeast Asia with Lightspeed. She was India head for Stripe, where she grew the team multifold and increased site approval by 39% and received the CEO award for 1% performer globally. She's co-founder for Scribe, building GitHub for machine learning, and product manager for Google Cloud. So Manjot, over to you. And just one suggestion is, in the last couple of panels, we weren't able to take in too many questions because we ran out of time. So maybe you could just bring in questions along the way. That'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you the brilliant team at TIE for putting together such an amazing event. So I'm Manjot, and assembling here an amazing set of people to be talking about how Indian startups and Indian companies are going global. So I'll just ask everyone, starting with Gaurav here, to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Manjot. So I'm currently running SaaS Labs. Before that, I built a couple of businesses in US which got acquired. That's when I moved back to India. SaaS Labs basically build like multiple products for sales and support agents. We bootstrapped for first 4.5 years, and then we raised about $60 million last year in 2 rounds. Currently have about 6,000 plus customers, mostly outside India, 40 countries, and then we have 250 people working remotely in 6 countries for us. So happy to be here.
Hey everyone, my name is Anirudh Singla. I'm the founder and CEO of Pepper Content. At Pepper, we're trying to build the world's largest content marketing platform. We've had a very interesting journey. We started Pepper in the second year of our college at BITS Pilani. It's been about 5 years since we're building, been a roller coaster ride. We started selling in India, and obviously the Indian market's grown really fast, and now we have global aspirations. So we're expanding really fast in the US. We're about a 200-member team out of India largely, soon globally scaling, and we have about 2,500 plus customers. These are large brands like Amazon, Adobe, Facebook, Google, and so on. And we help these brands create great quality content through our talent marketplace and SaaS platform. So that's about us. Great to be here.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ritu Varma from Ankur Capital. So we're an early stage VC fund. I think this is called SaaS and Beyond, and I also bring the Beyond here. We do have SaaS companies, but also beyond the SaaS. So we invest in technology company typically. They're either digital or they're even science-led. So we have a broad base of companies here, about 35 companies across our portfolio, across multiple different sectors, and many of which have, left shores to go to other places. So happy to chat about that. Good to be here.
So yeah, around 30% of startups today are going international from the get-go. And as Ritu said, obviously strengthened more by SaaS, but there's SaaS, there's EdTech, crypto, a lot of different sectors. So yeah, what does it take to create category-defining global generational companies out of India? Maybe we can start with Ritu.
So in my opinion, what I've seen across the companies that have gone across, I think, obviously markets are different. I think if you've developed stuff here and you find that same problem globally, then it's an easy is not the right word. It makes sense. That scale makes sense. I think one of the first companies, it's an ag-tech company that solves for farm traceability and farm visibility, using AI, etc. So when they started, it was just India-based, and it's a SaaS company, went global across 60 countries. But what they found was that fundamentally the problem that they were solving for at the farm level was exactly the same no matter where you were in the globe, and ag was a global business. So I think when you see that fit, going global becomes a lot easier. I think the other point I would say is that you need to be thinking about the, whichever markets that you're going into, sort of what are the constraints, what are the expectations, let me put it that way, right? Not constraints. What are the expectations? So you can't have, for example, I can say we're invested in medtech companies, again SaaS, but India's regulatory and credibility proving environments are different from what they are in other places. So you've got to kind of solve for that. So I'd say, what are expectations you need to be clear about? The problem fit has to match up.
Interesting point about finding the right problem fit, which is applicable globally. Anirudh, do you think finding PMF locally and then scaling up, like that's a scalable journey to have?
See, yes and no, because very interestingly, it's all market driven. Luckily at Pepper, we are in a space where we're in the content marketing domain, which at least before 2017, India didn't exist, right? Digitalization scaled up, and then content started becoming a thing, and today all of us use the word content at least twice a day, right? So for us, what we saw was very clearly a very massive market which has potential to 10x on its own, right? And I think that's one clue of you deciding to take it global, right? So we saw that content marketing is a global application where companies in India are fast recognizing that and investing in that space. So that's amazing. In the US, we've seen that pace is probably 100x, given the market digitalized much earlier. And that's where now it's just very clear that the opportunity to build, say, $1 billion revenue business is much faster there. And I think that's that speed difference in how fast you want to get there is contingent on you going global. And I think with product market fit, so this is the thing, with every country probably or every market, product market fit is different. So there's no one universal product market fit. There's a PMF for India, there's a PMF for the US. We're in process of discovering that for the US, and there are a lot of factors. So I think first question you have to answer is how big is the market and which market do you want to go after based on its own expansion route. And then I think establishing product market fit is a journey of its own. I think that at least that's how we've approached it.
Interesting. And Gaurav, what do you think about the differences in requirements across different geographies, countries? Does PMF scale once you start from a place? And if not, like, how do you go about that?
Sure. So PMF is not just about product itself. It's also about perception and discoverability and distribution of your product, right? So if you are, let's say, starting in India and you start selling in India, there's no guarantee that it will work in outside in US or any other market, right? So for us, because we were bootstrapping, we wanted dollars while spending INR, right? So we didn't have any option but to go outside India itself, and obviously we had the aspiration to build a global sort of company. So for example, in our case, like we are selling in 40 plus countries. We are doing tens of millions of dollars in ARR, right? So we have good amount of $1 million plus geographies with us. I think that the important thing is very tactical, I would say, is like how the product marketing is working when you're going in different geographies, right? For example, in US, I'll talk about baseball, but in Europe, if I'm talking to us for a sales, I'll be talking about football. So it's a very small example, but that's how your positioning, your pitch should always change when you're going in different markets. If your pitch is not working in certain geography, it may be a product marketing problem rather than any other problem. So yeah, kind of a tactical sort of advice there.
No, that's very fair. I think product market fit, as both of you mentioned, defined by not just product, but also geography, market context, and has to be positioned keeping in mind the market that you're trying to enter. So that definitely makes a lot of sense. But then I come back to my main question, why we all are assembled here. What is the India advantage?
See, in our business, there's two India advantages. One is in our model of business, and one is for almost any company out there. In our model, we see a very clear TCS, Infosys kind of opportunity, that massive in the creative and marketing space, This time, the only difference for us is we don't have 100,000 people on roll. We have this as freelance talent on our marketplace. And we have product and technology enabling scalability in our business. And there, the India advantage is crazy, right? Creative, like simple example, a social media post in the US costs $300. That's the salary of an Indian graphic designer. So that's the arbitrage difference that we see. And so for us, at least how we look at it is, how do we get this talent access to better global opportunities and at the same time utilize the arbitrage advantage for our business? And the second lever for, right, like what Infosys TCS did. And the second lever for almost every other SaaS company is basically the product and engineering talent. I think last 3 years, Indian product design is probably by far the best in terms of any global standards. You look at PhonePe, you look at Cred, you look at any other modern fintech platforms or any product platform for that matter, right? The aesthetic product design is global by nature. And that's by Indian talent in product, in design, in engineering. So I think that access in itself is amazing. I think like no wonder Zoho, Freshworks have scaled up so fast in Chennai, which is now come up as some of the best engineers that are found there. So I think that's very clear. And I think it's also this very ordained ability to drive that hustle. See, in every market you need that 0 to 5 is a founder market fit game, right? It's you can't hire or outsource your first $5 million in sales is what we've seen. And that's where we've seen that the ability that the Indian founding team brings with themselves of being able to drive resourceability or that jugaad, right? That's very pristine. And I think these are very small, softer parts of things, but I think definitely call for having been able to prove out that India to global advantage.
Any comments from you, Gaurav?
Yeah, I can add there. So whenever we look at different geographies for hiring people, right, we look for the unfair advantages those geographies get us. For example, in India, like you can over-invest on customer support and success and give amazing customer support even to SMBs, which normally are underloved and underserved. And that was the basis of SaaS Labs in the first place. So from India, you can provide amazing, less than 5-minute customer sort of solutions to even people who are paying you $100 a month, and that too profitably. So that's an unfair advantage that India gives. For example, let's say we acquired a company in Poland. So the unfair advantage we get from there is great engineers at almost a Bangalore price. So I think we are always looking at this unfair advantage. And I think another thing that I've sort of noticed in the last 6 years running SaaS Labs is the people here are obviously very aspirational, right? So they're not chilled out. They really want to struggle, not struggle, but hard work to grow. And that sort of works sort of magically. It's not visible, but that's the kind of magic sauce that India brings on the table.
What about you, Ritu? Are you seeing any unfair advantages that your portfolio here has?
So I won't speak of SaaS, but I'll speak beyond SaaS. I think there are two parts. So the one is I think that India gives you the sandbox to innovate, right? We just have so many different kinds of scenarios. So I see a lot of tech-enabled companies building in these markets for this market. But then you've ironed out a whole bunch of issues if you go to similar adjacent markets, right? So I'm not talking about going to the US, which is not a similar market, but I'm talking about the rest half of the world, which is actually has a market structure which is very similar. So in India, you've ironed out some of those issues. So I think that's like a test bed is how I see it. It gives you the opportunity. I think the other is a cost arbitrage, but I actually see that not so much on the software side. I feel the software, you know, we've got to hold on to the edge. It's not really a price arbitrage anymore. We have a Luxembourg company. The tech talent is like half the price of what it is at India, and it's really good. But I think on the sort of biotechy side, it is what it was probably, 20 years back for tech. So the good people, really good, skilled, qualified people, super undervalued, right? And you can build those things out of India and serve the globe out of it. So those are the two things I see.
Oh, plus one on everything the panel has said, the cost arbitrage, the sandbox, as well as, I mean, I'd only say 10x the amount of hunger and hustle that I see here, the founders here that are trying to build global companies. I'll pause here for a second to see if there are any questions from the audience. Okay. I don't see anyone's hand up. So I mean, and also amazing to see how our talent ecosystem has been developing over the last, especially the last couple of years. When we see some of the companies like Zoho, Freshworks, Hasura, and others scale out and go global and become category leaders from the get-go. That is when, you know, you see talent from here becoming world-class. And I think that momentum of kicking off the ecosystem has started here. So definitely super exciting times. I'll maybe put forth another question on any sub-segments that you see in India today that are more buzzing with respect to the India to global movement. Maybe Ritu, you can answer that.
So to us, I think, you know, we see this emerging, so we are a deep tech investor. So we see this, you know, really, really high quality companies, entrepreneurs, right, that are building as well, if not better, than what's being done in other geographies. And so, again, going back to that, you know, that talent is undervalued, available, you know, as long as you have people at the helm who understand, you know, the global frontiers for sort of doing this and what it takes to get it out there, I think that's something we see kind of emerging and happening out of here.
What about you, Anirudh? Are there any sectors primed for this India to global movement?
See, we focus only on our sector. As founders, we can't think somewhere else. But you know, I think the MarTech ecosystem overall has evolved really well. You see, I think today the fastest growing companies are coming out of the MarTech space. And I think one thing's clear, as much as digitalization keeps scaling up, the need for a stronger MarTech ecosystem is needed, and at least that's where our category fits in. So we're seeing some very good companies innovating and getting out of here to global markets there much faster. Like prime examples are Clevertap, MoEngage, which both close to touching $100 million, say, in the next 1.5 to 2 years, which is testimony to how great MarTech products have been able to build global domination. So I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, I'm seeing like DevOps tools like picking up really well. Then security and compliance tools are coming up, which is also kind of an export from India happening. Like all those SOC 2, HIPAA compliant softwares, I think they are also coming out from India. Then a lot of API first startups are also coming in. We are seeing something in the fintech space right now, but obviously there's a lot of opportunities in logistics and other area where API first tools can be exported to the world. Yeah, so that's sort of my read on the market.
Plus one on the developer tools category really breaking out. I mean, Postman is definitely the poster child, but Postman, BrowserStack, Hasura, Supabase out of Singapore. And I think lots of these, the good part about that particular category, I guess, is the PMF holds and scales really well across the engineering and developer cohort. So definitely an interesting space to watch out for. Maybe, I mean, no panel is complete without the obvious question that gets asked at every panel, which is how are markets reacting to the downturn? What are some of the things to be mindful of in each of your businesses, as well as, you know, investing in these spaces in general? Maybe Gaurav, we can start with you.
Sure. Yeah, I think, so obviously the whole recession thing is hitting more US and Europe than India. That at least we have felt that. And companies are sort of freezing the hiring bit a bit here and there. So that's also impacting our expansion of our accounts, basically. So that's one. Second is how we sort of go through that. One is obviously you look at your sort of expenses and everything. That's obvious. But now that we are funded, so it's not a big problem. As of now, we are almost profitable, so it's not a problem for us. But in general, I think some of the early startups that I have invested in, that's what I'm sort of guiding them. that how can they, increase their decrease their burn rate basically. Second is obviously like listening to your customers and helping them out in this business, right? Like ask them like how can we help you? Can we make your payment schedule a bit easier for you? Would you like to commit for 2 years but get a discount but pay us only a monthly basis? So some sort of just be proactive with your customers to say that, hey, we are here to help you. Money is not the problem. Let's figure it out. I think that simple message will sort of help out a bit, and it will also save you from a lot of churn. So I think that's one thing that our customer success team is doing right now.
Yeah, I think in our business, the interesting part is it's a value-driven business. So people invest in content when they're looking to double down and expand. So interesting thing has been our customer base has deepened down on mid-market enterprise, and those are already deep-pocketed folks. So there's not a lot of impact there, and I think at least in India, our entire customer base has just moved enterprise completely. So we've seen very less impact as such. But yeah, I think definitely what we see is even in our business model, it's actually a cost advantage to the customer. Because what we say is we're virtual content and creative teams that can work on our platform and at the same time get access to our talent marketplace that enables companies not to hire a lot of people in-house or fixed. So that way the customer sees that advantage in Pepper as well. So I think that's where at least we've been very neutral from an impact standpoint, and I think we see positive tides over the next 1.5 to 2 years.
Is the question to me about investing in companies or what the companies are seeing at this, which side of the coin?
Both, I think, both sides, since you can comment on both.
Okay, I actually haven't seen much of a change in the business trajectories at companies on ground. So I think that it's, at least especially India stuff is just continuing as is. I don't think there is a push. Perhaps globally in some markets, there's a bit more of tightening, et cetera, happening of how people spend their money. But I think, broadly, I would say that it hasn't really been a high impact. I think the larger conversation obviously has been about the funding winter and sort of the lack of capital and what that will mean and, tightening the belt and all that good stuff, right? So I think those things are all real, but that doesn't mean that there isn't money, right? It just means that the money is asking for something different from what it did for the last 2 years. So as a business or as a company enterprise, you need to be focusing on making sure that, the core of that business is something that is happening. There is still a lot of capital out there. I was just in Silicon Valley. There's a lot of capital sitting there. It's not that it isn't there. There's a lot of capital that's been raised specifically targeted at India. It's just not the past 2 years. It's a different 2 years coming up. So that's the only thing.
Plus one, too, a lot of capital being available, especially at the early stage. I think it's just about finding the right team and focusing on the fundamentals of business building. So for sure, I would, reaffirm the message that the environment should not be the one bringing down the morale. There's actually a lot of exciting opportunities to be created during times like these. And if we recall history, I think Airbnb, Stripe, and all, those are the cohort of companies that came out of the previous downturn. So definitely an exciting time to be both building and investing. So what is the one thing that, we're all super excited about this movement of all companies going global, ambition of the founders really expanding. But what is the one thing that will catapult it to 10x the pace it is today? And how can, everyone in the ecosystem support that? Maybe we can start with Gaurav. How can we catapult this movement of the ecosystem really becoming more mature, companies going global?
Yeah, I think it starts with the startups supporting each other because, so I was working with one of our investors, like why all the US companies grow way, way faster than the Indian companies. Like, you always hear these stories that this company went from 10 million to 50 million 1 year. But here in India, we see stories like 10 million to 20 million, right? So it's not a 4x, 5x jump that we see. And while looking at how, and we were talking to someone, a very senior CRO of a big public company which sells into SMB in US, he told that 40% of the business comes from the startups itself. So I think the startup should start supporting each other. We should start buying from each other. I think that's very basic thing that should happen. Maybe there can be a platform for that. I don't know. But I think that's one where we can start getting some early traction. The early startups, which are seed round, Series A round sort of startups, they get the traction faster, more sort of PMF faster. I think that's sort of one. And second is, I mean, I started taking some of the coaching from people in US recently, and that's been super helpful. So if coaching for CEOs or in general, coaching for the senior folks in your team, if that can also be normalized, can be made mainstream, I think that will open up a lot of opportunity. The way you think big, I think that will also open up a bit. I mean, that's something I am trying.
Investing in talent is very critical, and when I say investing in talent, it's your own teams. So like at Pepper, we do this exciting thing where we create this panel of people per function. So we'll probably, I'll try to use our investors network and our own network to get some of the best engineering talent, some of the best product folks, some of the best marketing folks, and we'll bring in leaders from companies who've seen scale, and then bring our functional heads in touch with these people, right? And create some kind of recurring loop and encourage our teams to be able to deliver or build their own mentor-mentee relationship. I think in general, at least, it's always been a very closed ecosystem where say probably just the founders and CEOs get access to some very good talent, but how do you bring that learnings to your team who's executing on ground? And I think as soon as we start investing in talent, right, we probably don't need to look for a product leader based out of SF. We know that person's sitting in our team delivering and scaling with the company, especially at least at the stage at where we're scaling from 10 to 50 million. This is a very different scaling touch point, and every journey has a different set of people you need to be able to grow that. And I think companies that have scaled really well are people who have grown with the company. Right? So how do you invest in that talent and that team? That's very understated, but I think should be critical.
Really amazing points on both talent development at every level and startups buying from each other. In fact, that's what YC, one of the biggest advantages of them was that you immediately get access to all of their cohorts. So I think those two things are definitely critical. Ritu, would love to hear your comments.
I think we talked about this, and these guys have just reaffirmed that, you know, I think we have a thin talent pool for the people who are multipliers. So I think that talent pool can become a lot deeper. And as soon as it does, you know, you have choices that you can pick from. I think most people are still learning is the vibe, right? And that takes time. I think there's another thing that I'll add, that if you want to take a look at the India market, our experience is that, you know, I'll relate an anecdote. You know, I was talking to a very large company, so like a, you know, not the CEO, but whatever, somewhere up there. You know, he said, look, I saw all this tech happening. I didn't take it seriously, right? I just thought, oh yeah, some kids playing around, right? And enough so that one of these kids shut him out of his biggest market, right? So he's like, now I need to do something. So I think that transition is still kind of happening for the Indian customer, right? India is a value for money country, so even if you're selling B2B, everybody wants everything for not much money at the end of the day. So, you know, you're going to get much sharper with PMF. So I think some of those transitions are underway, and we should see that unlock. But I think the sentiment that customers, you know, that the problem is that these companies have existed for 50, 60, hundreds of years, and they think they know it all, and that transition is what's taking time to realize, look, there's another age upon us, we better change.
Interesting thoughts. And what is the one biggest challenge that you see Indian startups face while going global from India? The biggest one?
I think the biggest one, it'll be very tactical again. It'll be again how you position yourself, right? I mean, that's very different, like how to not look desi in the global market, right? So I think that's the positioning and this whole product marketing plus positioning. I think that's the biggest reasons of failures I've seen in some of those startups which couldn't make it in the global markets. Yeah, I mean, so normally the thinking is like, hey, can I hire a salesperson in US to figure out if we can sell in US? I think that's not the right way. The right way is your pitch, your words sticking or not in the market. You have to test that first. And that's a play of product marketing and positioning as a combined thing. Another funny thing that I've seen is that a lot of startups who are playing pricing game, they actually get perceived as a low quality product. So don't play the pricing game in the global market at least. Don't play that if that company is charging $50 a month, don't go a $5 a month play. You will fail there. You don't have to play that game. So that's been my take.
No, I think like, just coupling on what Gaurav said, I think you don't talk to a lot of customers early on before what you build. At least with Pepper, we didn't build the product first. We ran a business without the product to understand what's the best product fit that the customer needs. And I think just speaking to a very high quality concentrated base of customers and even zeroing down on who that customer is extremely critical before you start building anything, because what you'll build for an enterprise versus an SMB has very different ways of working, organization structure and everything. So before you invest a lot in doing 10 things, I think most startups that they struggle with is just finding the ideal customer profile and just speaking to them a lot, right? Before we kickstarted our US presence, I made sure I'm on 250 calls with customers, myself, with my team, validating it before we took a very strong call, okay, we'll now expand, right? And I think that needs time, patience, and is absolutely essential to build a long-term business.
I'd echo that. I mean, I think the challenge is you have to know the customer. You're going to a different geography. I mean, going from Delhi to Bombay to Bangalore are different markets. This is a little further away market. You've got to spend time, make sure you've got, you know who you're selling to. So that fundamentally is something. And their expectations, right? Both coupled together. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a very good book, Monetizing Innovation. I think that's a very good book to go to read that book, and that'll give you great ideas like how to go about with talking to customers and building your product around that. I think this is something I recently read, so it's a pretty good book.
Makes sense. I think at this point I'll open it up for questions from the audience.
Okay, any questions? Yes, please go ahead. Could we have the mic over there? Okay, that's coming from here. Go ahead, very quickly, we are a little low on time, please.
Hello. Yeah, my question is, what are your marketing channels for global, like to market globally? And second is, do we have a data leverage as well as, working from Indian companies through India itself?
I'll probably take that. So see, marketing channels, there's obviously the standard ones, performance, content marketing, social and brand. It depends on what product you're selling to, who you're selling to. What's increasingly seeming to work a lot is a product-led growth approach, which is how do you drive user acquisition through a product-led strategy. So at least we built this product called Peppertype.ai. It's a key product line for us. It's AI-based content generation, which has a similar customer base as our marketplace platform. So what that enabled is Peppertype has an innate ability to grow really fast. So it has some 250,000 users, of which we identified some 15,000 customers, which are very relevant in the mid-market enterprise space for our marketplace product. And now there's this cross-pollination that's driving user acquisition. So if you're able to figure out strategies which allow users to come and discover you yourself, I think that's the best form. Do we have an India advantage in marketing? I don't think so. I think it's not just India. I think it's a global problem, right? I think distribution and cracking that, I think, is the most critical lever for any founder who's in the growth stage or early stage. And there's no playbook. You just have to keep at it.
Yeah, just to add there. So I think we should always, at least in the early time, we should always think about distribution first and then marketing. Marketing is a subset of distribution as a whole. Just to give you our example, so we grew to about $5 million ARR without spending single money on marketing because we were looking at distribution as a whole. And we use integrations as our go-to-market to get our first $5 million ARR very profitably, right? So we should always look at how can I distribute my product rather than like what are the marketing channels. Marketing channels will be very different for every different company, and they will actually plateau at some stage. So you can't live on marketing forever. So look at distribution as a main game.
Okay, all right, very quickly, if we can have this last question. We are, okay, there's also a lady there. So can we just quickly take the two questions and see if we can wrap it up in a minute? We are about 3 minutes over time. Just go ahead, sir, very quickly.
How do you manage out content in different languages? This question is to you, Anirudh.
Okay, and could we just take the mic over there? So just get the lady right here, please. If you could raise your hand again. Sorry, up here in front here. Yeah, correct. Thank you.
Hi, my question is to Mr. Anirudh. What are Pepper Content's plans to foray into multilingual content?
Okay,
I'm asking
same
this
language.
because somebody, my project in future can be a customer for multilingual content on a regular basis.
Okay.
So I am a present Pepper Content consumer and a satisfied one.
Okay, terrific. So both the questions are the same and they're for you. Languages, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, guys. So see, just one fact which a lot of us probably don't know. Like we have these marketing advertising agencies in India, right? Ogilvy's of the world. Globally, there's this language service provider. It's called an LSP. These are the largest organizations which are involved in multilingual translation. You'd be surprised to know the top 10 language service providers globally do $5 billion of revenue. That's the volume of in revenue. And that's the kind of volume of globalization, localization that's all across. So we are very excited about the localization space. In fact, it's one of our largest categories that are up and coming. Today, it's about 20% of our business. And I think in the next 2 to 3 years, it'll probably be the most dominant one. I think every business who's globalizing has to localize. I don't think you can do business in Europe without localized assets at all, because language currency of trust, and trust is best communicated through contextual content. And I think that's where we're very clear, and I think should every business, and in fact in India as well, we see so many of our customers starting to invest in the Indian lingual space to reach out to tier 2, tier 3 cities, and must tell you that the impact's crazy. Like every month there's almost multiplicative languages being launched. So highly recommend this as a strategy for any business which is looking to localize, expand customer base.
Okay, thank you so much. We are out of time completely. Thank you very much, panel. Could I have a little token of appreciation? I think SaaS has been a wonderful, contrarian, extra bright spark in this so-called funding winter. You know, 4 billion in funding last year in India, which is supposed to grow to grow 63% to 6.5 billion. So a lot of optimism riding the SaaS wave there. Thank you so much again, and a photograph for the record. While they do that, just like to thank our gifting partners, Fruitfal, Trido Vilasa, and Shishtaka for the wonderful speaker gifts.